Before we begin, take a moment to get comfortable. Let your arms go heavy, your breath slow. And as you listen, feel free to leave a comment sharing what time it is, where you are, and what city or village you're listening from. It's love to know. And if you'd like more quiet stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe so they gently appear when you need them most. Now, let's begin. You draw in a breath, slowly, without thought. The air enters your lungs, fills the spaces inside, nourishes your body, and then, almost as quietly, leaves again. It feels like such a simple act. Inhale, exhale, the rhythm of being alive. Yet, behind it lies something far older, far wider than yourself. Every breath you take is part of a cycle that has been turning for billions of years. The air you breathe has never truly ended. It has only moved, flowing endlessly from life to life, from sea to sky, from stone to forest. Consider what happens in this single moment. You inhale oxygen, molecules set free by plants and plankton, born in sunlight. You exhale carbon dioxide, which will be drawn into leaves, dissolved into oceans, perhaps stored in stone. This exchange is so ancient that it predates humanity itself. It predates even the first forests, reaching back to the very beginning of life on Earth. Air is not consumed. It does not disappear. Every atom you draw in has been here before, carried on the wind, drifting across mountains, oceans, and generations. Each breath is a borrowing. You take it in for a few moments, let it circulate within you, and then you return it, changed, but still part of the same endless atmosphere. Think of the rhythm. Inhale, exhale. It feels personal, intimate, the movement of your own body. But it is also planetary. The forests inhale when you exhale. The oceans draw in what you release. The cycle balances itself, quietly, gently, without end. You are not breathing alone. You are breathing with the earth. Imagine time stretched back millions of years. Picture the great dinosaurs wandering beneath vast ferns, their lungs rising and falling. The air that filled them was not lost. It drifted onward, mixed, shifted, but it remains. Molecules still circulating in the atmosphere, some of which may now be in your own lungs. Imagine the mammoths walking icy plains, the first humans building fires beneath the stars, the poets of ancient cities breathing as they wrote. Their breaths, too, were not endings. They joined the same cycle you now share. This is why the breath never ends. It is not yours alone. It belongs to the planet, to life itself, to the endless exchange between living things and the atmosphere. Every time you inhale, you are joining an unbroken chain, stretching back through deep time, linking you to every creature that has ever lived. There is something calming in this thought. The world often feels fragile, fleeting, but the breath reminds you of continuity. Long before you, long before human history, this rhythm was already here, and long after, it will remain. Carried forward in the patience of Earth, the molecules you exhale tonight will drift outward, circling the globe, finding new lungs, new leaves, new homes. Think of a single oxygen molecule. It may have once formed inside the leaf of a tree, set free by sunlight, splitting water into gas. It may have drifted upward into clouds, been pulled across the sky by wind, dissolved in ocean waves, and returned again to air. Tonight, it enters your lungs. Tomorrow, it may be carried into the breath of a child on the other side of the world. In a century, it may feed the respiration of another creature entirely. The molecule never ends, it only moves, carried by the endless cycle of breath. This rhythm is not hurried. Here, it does not rush. It flows with patience, like the tide, like the turning of seasons. Each breath you take is both ordinary and extraordinary, a continuation of something vast. The air moves through you, but it is not yours to keep. It belongs to no one and to everyone at once. Close your eyes and notice the stillness that comes when you breathe slowly. The air touches you with its history, carrying fragments of forests, oceans, and lives that came before. You do not need to see them. They are already here, within the breath itself. You are connected to all of it, simply by existing, simply by breathing. There is also a lesson here, whispered in the quiet of the atmosphere. Nothing is ever truly separate. The breath that leaves your body will become part of another's life. The breath you take in tonight may have passed through countless beings before you. Even the invisible connects us all, weaving life together in a single rhythm. And so, each breath is both intimate and infinite. Head is the rise and fall of your chest, and it is the rise and fall of the planet. Head, it is your life, and it is the continuation of all life. Tia does not vanish. It only moves, patiently, eternally, through time. As you rest with this thought, you feel the gentleness of the cycle, the way it holds you as much as you hold it. You are breathing now, as forests once breathed, as oceans still breathe, as creatures of the past and future will breathe. The rhythm never ends, and in that calm, your thoughts begin to wander softly. If every breath is part of an endless cycle, then, perhaps, the very molecules of air themselves carry memory-silent travelers, with histories longer than we can imagine, drifting endlessly from age to age. Asterisk, take another slow breath. The air moves in and out, so ordinary it barely asks for thought. Yet within it are countless tiny travelers' molecules of oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide. Each one is unimaginably small, invisible to your eye, yet each carries a memory. Okay, have been here longer than humanity, longer than forests, longer even than animals themselves. These molecules are survivors, drifting endlessly through time. Begin with nitrogen, the quiet giant of the atmosphere. It makes up nearly 4/5 of every breath you take. Yet, it is so still, so stable, that you rarely think of it. Nitrogen does not burn, does not nourish you in the way oxygen does, but it is always there, a calm backdrop to life. Its molecules were forged billions of years ago, born in stars and scattered across the cosmos before Earth itself formed. To breathe nitrogen is to breathe stardust, a fragment of the universe carried into your lungs. Oxygen is different. It is the vivid one, the giver of fire and life. When you inhale, oxygen binds with your blood, feeds your cells, fuels the quiet engine of your body. Yet even this lively gas is old. It was not always here in abundance. For much of Earth's history, oxygen was scarce. Only when ancient microbes learned to use sunlight-splitting water into hydrogen and oxygen did the air fill with it. That was more than 2 billion years ago. The very oxygen in your lungs tonight may trace its lineage to that ancient bloom of life. The great oxidation that forever changed the planet. Carbon dioxide is quieter still, but no less important. Plants crave it, drinking it in with sunlight to grow. Animals return it, exhaling what plants can use again. Cycle is slower, sometimes drifting into oceans, sometimes locked away in stone, sometimes circling back into the air. To breathe, it is to touch not just life, but the memory of volcanoes, of forests, of oceans, all exchanging molecules in patience. Each molecule is so small that trillions pass through you every second, yet each carries its own long story. A molecule of oxygen may have once been part of a glacier, trapped as ice for thousands of years, only to melt and be released again. Another may have fed a mammoth or flowed through the chest of a Roman citizen walking ancient streets. A molecule of carbon dioxide in your lungs tonight may once have drifted from the smoke of a volcano in Iceland, arisen from a forest fire lit by lightning 1,000 years ago. Air does not forget. It only moves, carrying its molecules from age to age, from place to place, endlessly recycled. The same nitrogen you breathe may once have been bound into the body of a dinosaur, then released, then carried across oceans, then drawn into your lungs tonight. You are part of the circulation, a temporary resting place for molecules with memories older than humanity itself. It helps to picture them as travelers, visible voyagers, drifting across continents, across centuries, across lives. Alea, not destroyed when you exhale. They wander on, carried by the winds, dissolved in seas, absorbed by leaves, released again, endlessly moving. Each one remembers in silence, its very existence proof of the deep continuity of Earth. Think of this when you step outside on a quiet evening. The air touches your skin, enters your body, leaves again. It feels fresh, but it is ancient. Molecule has already traveled farther than you ever will. It has passed through glaciers, forests, deserts, rivers. It has circled the globe countless times, inhaled in lungs, dissolved in oceans, released in fire. You borrow it for a few moments, then return it to the journey. This is why every breath connects you not only to life, but to time itself. You inhale molecules that have been here since the beginning, unchanged, drifting silently through history. It's no awareness, no memory as we understand it. And yet their persistence is a kind of memory, the memory of survival, of endurance, of continuity. Scientists study these molecules to read Earth's story. By measuring the gases trapped in ancient ice, they learned what the air was like tens of thousands of years ago. By tracing carbon isotopes, they followed the path of carbon dioxide through forests, oceans, and stone. By studying oxygen, they uncover the story of life's earliest days. Molecules are not just invisible particles. They are archives carrying evidence of what has been silently recording the passage of time. To rest with this thought is to feel smaller and yet more connected. Each breath is not just yours. It is shared with stars, with oceans, with forests, with creatures long gone. Molecules pass through you, but they do not stay. They move on, carrying their quiet memories forward. You are part of their journey, just as they are part of yours. There is comfort in this cycle. You are never separate from the world around you. The very air you breathe has touched everything else: volcanoes, glaciers, trees, rivers, cities, and people. It is the thread that links all of Earth's history into one continuous fabric. And as you exhale now, imagine those molecules drifting outward, invisible travelers setting off once more. Some may enter the leaves of a nearby tree. Some may circle the globe, returning years from now in another breath. Some may linger in oceans or be trapped in ice, waiting centuries before they are released again. Each carries its silent history. It's a memory of movement. As night deepens, you feel the quiet presence of these travelers in your lungs. Nitrogen.com, and ancient. Oxygen, lively and generous. Carbon dioxide, patient and enduring. They have been here before, and they will be here again. You are breathing with the past, with the present, with the future, and with this reflection. Another thought rises gently. If molecules themselves carry such long histories, then perhaps even your breath tonight connects across ages to creatures now gone, to beings unimaginably vast, even to dinosaurs whose final exhale may still linger in the air you breathe. Asterisk, imagine the late Cretaceous world, some 66 million years ago. The Earth was warmer than it is today, with no polar ice caps. Its vast inland seas stretched across what is now North America, and flowering plants had spread across the continents in silent green triumph. The air was thick with oxygen compared to the epochs that had come before, carrying the scent of pine resin and damp ferns. In that air moved creatures of unimaginable scale triceratops herds grazing in wide floodplains, pterosaurs gliding on currents of rising heat, and towering Tyrannosaurus, the last great king of its lineage, stepping heavily through the dust. The age of dinosaurs had lasted for over 160 million years, an unfathomable stretch of time, longer than the entire history of mammals since. For generation upon generation, life had adapted, shifted, and survived. If the earth itself could breathe, it would have exhaled a long, slow breath of reptilian dominance, filling every continent with scales, claws, and thunderous steps. Yet, in the deep rhythm of geology, nothing is permanent. Even as the dinosaurs thrived, the planet beneath them was changing. Volcanoes in what we now call India poured rivers of molten basalt onto the land, releasing immense amounts of carbon dioxide and sulfur into the sky. The climate was warming and cooling in uneven cycles, creating stress on ecosystems. Sea levels rose and fell, drowning some habitats and exposing others. To the creatures living then, these shifts may have been subtle, spanning many lifetimes, but to Earth's memory, there were tremors, early signals of an ending. The final breath of the dinosaurs came suddenly. High above the Gulf of Mexico, a piece of rock the size of a city was tumbling through space, silent in the void, unseen by the eyes of any living creature. It had wandered for millions of years, a remnant of a broken asteroid, until the mathematics of orbit brought it unerringly toward Earth. In a single instant, 66 million years ago, it struck near what is now Chicxulub on the Yucatan Peninsula. The collision released more energy than billions of nuclear bombs. Forests thousands of miles away ignited instantly. Shock waves rippled across continents, leveling entire ecosystems in minutes. The sea itself rose up in walls of water that smashed coasts. But it was the sky that sealed the dinosaurs' fate. Dust, ash, and vaporized rock blasted upward into the stratosphere, forming a veil that wrapped the planet. For months, perhaps years, sunlight dimmed. The green engines of life, the plants stopped thriving without the warmth of the sun. Temperatures plunged, photosynthesis faltered. Food chains snapped. Small mammals huddled in burrows. Crocodiles lingered in swamps. Birds that had already adapted to eat seeds managed to scrape by. The great reptiles of the land, dependent on abundant vegetation and prey, began to vanish in this slow dying. The earth seemed to hold its breath. Across prairies that had once echoed with herds of ceratopsians, silence spread. Skeletons bleached in the sun. Predators found no prey. The mighty sauropods, whose hearts once pumped blood up long necks to leaves of trees, left only their fossilized echoes in stone. And then, one day, it was over. The last roar, the last wing beat, the last exhale of an empire that had lasted far longer than humanity ever has. When the skies cleared again, the world was empty of giants. The age of dinosaurs had ended, but endings on Earth are never truly endings. Out of the stillness came the rustle of survivors. Tiny shrew-like mammals scurried through leaf litter, their descendants destined to inherit a transformed planet. Kurds took to the skies, carrying the legacy of dinosaurs in their hollow bones and feathered wings. Life adjusted, as it always does, shaping itself into new patterns. The dinosaurs' last exhale was not silence, it was transformation. In their absence, mammals spread, diversified, and began the long path toward what would one day include us. The earth, in its endless patience, continued to breathe. One age closed, another began, and in the rock layers beneath our feet, the moment of impact is still there, a thin line of iridium, scattered across the globe, marking the instant when the giants fell and the world turned toward something new. Asterisk beneath. The sweeping silence of the polar regions. The world breathes in ways so subtle, we almost forget it is alive. Vast sheets of ice stretch endlessly, appearing still and lifeless to the human eye. Yet hidden within their crystalline depths lie tiny, bubbles-perfect spheres of air, sealed away for tens of thousands of years. They are not just bubbles, but messengers. Each one holds a whisper of the ancient sky, a fragment of the breath of those who came before us. It's both human and not dot. When snow falls in the polar night, it does not vanish as it might in warmer lands. Instead, layer by layer, it settles into the frozen archive. Flakes collapse under the weight of new winters, compressing into fern, then into glacial ice. With every season, a new sheet is added, sealing away the breath of that year, that day, perhaps even that hour. Trapped in these layers are traces of volcanic ash, faint particles of desert dust carried across oceans, and above all teeny, delicate pockets of atmosphere now entombed forever. Imagine holding a piece of this ancient ice. Within it is the air of a world long vanished, a world where mammoths wandered across frozen plains and humans painted on cave walls. Scientists, gently melting such samples in laboratories, are not just measuring gases, they are unlocking memories the Earth itself tried to keep safe. In the bubbles, they find carbon dioxide and methane levels from ages past. They find oxygen ratios that speak of forests that flourished, oceans that shifted, and climates that warmed or cooled. To study ice is to study silence. No rushing rivers, no thunder of storms, just the muted weight of time pressing down. Yet, the secrets it carries are thunderous in meaning. From these bubbles, we have learned how sudden the Earth can change. We know that ice ages advance not slowly, but in abrupt, startling steps. We know that human history unfolded in a window of calm, a pause between violent swings of climate. Sometimes, looking at the oldest cores, drilled 2 miles down into Antarctic ice, scientists encounter air that last touched the sky more than 800,000 years ago, that is older than modern humans. Then that air are traces of a planet, untamed, where glaciers advanced across continents and retreated again, reshaping coastlines, forests, and seas. The bubbles are not silent. They are patient storytellers waiting millennia to be heard. And yet, there is fragility in their waiting. For as the modern world warms, glaciers melt and the bubbles slip away. Air that waded through ice ages vanishes into the ocean and sky, dissolved and scattered before its story is fully read. It is as though the archive itself is burning, the shelves collapsing before we can finish our study in the polar night. The ice glows faintly blue when fractured, like light trapped in frozen stone. Within that glow are countless breath exhales of forests that no longer exist. Sighs of animals long gone, fragments of volcanic eruptions that turned skies dark. Summers of warmth that melted rivers and winters of snow that buried them again. The bubbles are the Earth's diary, written in silence, sealed in crystal. Now being opened with the tools of science, to listen to them is to be humbled. We are reminded that the air we breathe today is not just ours, carries molecules once held by ice, once shared by ancient winds, once carried across continents by storms. Inhale deeply, and perhaps one atom of oxygen in your lungs once drifted inside the chest of a mammoth. Perhaps one molecule of nitrogen once passed through the frozen breath of a Neanderthal. The bubbles in the ice prove this continuity. Then, there is only one atmosphere shared across all generations of life. The ice is not just frozen water. It is frozen time, trapped in layers, waiting. In the hush of dawn, before the chatter of birds awakens the canopy, the forest is already breathing. Though it has no lungs, no chest to rise and fall, its countless green leaves perform the slowest, most patient respiration imaginable. Each leaf, a soft panel of living tissue, opens itself to the air and begins the exchange that has tied plants and animals together for hundreds of millions of years. Carbon dioxide drifts in, molecules of invisible gas sliding through microscopic pores called stomata. A trace of sunlight strikes the leaf's surface, and within its cells, chlorophyll stirs. It captures the energy of the sun, a power so vast that it once forged the very elements inside stars. That energy is then bent, redirected, used to transform carbon and water into the simplest, most sustaining molecules, glucose to feed the plant, oxygen to release back into the air. This is the forest's endless exhale, the other half of our own inhale. While we pull oxygen deep into our lungs, forests gift it to us, molecule by molecule, without asking for anything but carbon in return. The reciprocity is ancient. In the days when Earth was young, the atmosphere contained little oxygen at all. The earliest forest-scouring lycophytes, ferns, and horsetails changed that. Their unceasing work thickened the air with oxygen, reshaping what life could be, allowing animals to grow larger, more complex, more daring in form, beneath the canopy. The air is different, cooler, heavier, tinged with the earthy musk of decaying wood. Even here, exchange continues. Fallen leaves rot slowly, their stored carbon returning to the soil. Fungi thread through the detritus, breaking it apart, feeding on the remnants, and exhaling carbon back to the air. Nothing is wasted. Even the forest floor breathes in its own way. A single tree, a beech perhaps, may exchange hundreds of liters of oxygen in one day. Multiply that by the billions of trees across continents, and the forest becomes an unseen ocean of breath, every moment replenishing the air we rely on. Yet, the forest does not breathe alone. It waits for the rhythm of all living creatures. Drawing in sharp lungfuls, deer huffing softly as they browse insects exchanging gases through tiny spiracles. The entire biome is an orchestra of inhalations and exhalations, overlapping, never ceasing. In forests, too, listen to seasons. In spring, new leaves unfurl like green sails, capturing more sunlight, quickening the flow of oxygen. In autumn, they fade, curl, and drop, surrendering their brief duty to the cycle. The forest's exhale slows, almost like a sleeper entering a deeper phase of rest. And then winter arrives, quiet, bare branches standing in cold air, conserving what little energy remains. Still, even then, the breathing never truly stops. The trees, alive beneath bark and snow, hold their rhythm through the darkest months. The forest is not only an exchange of gases, a key, it is a ledger of time. Within tree rings, the story of carbon shifts is written year by year. Wide rings mark seasons of abundance. Narrow rings, years of drought or chill. In ice cores, pollen grains from vanished forests are still caught, carried upward by winds long ago, then buried in frozen silence. Every fragment reminds us that the forest's breath has sculpted the planet across epochs. As night falls, when the sunlight fades and photosynthesis ceases, the forest does not stop, but shifts its rhythm. Now plants inhale oxygen too, breaking down stored sugars in the same way animals do. As the great exchange becomes balanced oxygen given in the day, consumed in the night, always in harmony. And so it continues, this slow respiration of woodlands, jungles, close your eyes and imagine standing in a vast forest at dusk. The air is cool, moist, almost alive. Above you, the canopy stirs, visible to sight, but certain too. Your body, the forest exhales, and you inhale. The molecules entering your lungs may have been touched by leaves only seconds ago, or perhaps hours before, drifting in slow currents of air. In this shared breath, you are part of the forest's endless exchange. Beneath the crust of the earth lies a restless world, hidden chambers of molten rock, pressurized gases, and simmering minerals wait patiently, sometimes for centuries, before finding release. The surface above might seem calm fields of grass, snow-capped ridges, or quiet coastal villages, but below, the planet keeps its own secret rhythm, and when that rhythm swells into eruption, the Earth exhales not only fire and stone, but also vast breaths of invisible gases that join the atmosphere, reshaping air itself. Volcanoes are often thought of as destroyers. They bury towns in ash, silence forests beneath rivers of lava, and change landscapes overnight. But they are also creators of land, of soil, and of air. Without volcanoes, Earth's atmosphere would never have taken its present form. Every eruption, violent or gentle, is a kind of breathing, a deep exhale from the hidden lungs of the planet. The ancient breath billions of years ago, when Earth was young and inhospitable, it was volcanoes that filled the skies, the atmosphere. You breathe today. Oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide was not born fully formed. Instead, it emerged slowly from deep within the mantle. Early Earth had little in the way of breathable air. What air existed was thin, unstable, and heavy with hydrogen and helium, quickly stripped away by solar winds. It was volcanic activity that began to give Earth an atmosphere of substance. Through vast outpourings of gases, eruptions expelled water vapor, carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, and nitrogen. This constant exhalation built the foundation for all future air. Imagine the sky of early Earth, dark and dense, filled with clouds of volcanic haze. The ground shook regularly, and rivers of molten rock traced their way to the sea. That primitive atmosphere, born of fire, held no oxygen, but it created conditions where oceans could form and primitive life could one day begin. Volcanoes were not incidental, they were essential. Every sigh of gas that rose into the sky carried the seeds of habitability, the present breath today. When a volcano erupts, it releases far more than just ash and lava. Invisible gases surge upward in immense columns: carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, water vapor, and traces of noble gases like helium and argon. Each eruption is like a message from the deep earth, delivered into the air. Carbon dioxide from volcanoes contributes to the planet's carbon cycle. The same vast circulation of carbon through oceans, forests, and atmosphere that sustains life. Though human industry now emits far more carbon dioxide than volcanoes, their contribution is still vital, a reminder that the planet itself is always part of the conversation. Sulfur dioxide, too, tells its story. When volcanic eruptions loft sulfur high into the atmosphere, it can combine with water to form tiny droplet sulfate aerosols that scatter sunlight. In this way, volcanoes can cool the earth, lowering global temperatures for months or even years. The eruption of Mount Pinatubo in 1991, for example, has released nearly 20 million tons of sulfur dioxide, leading to a measurable cooling of the Earth's surface. Fire, paradoxically, brought a temporary chill. Volcanoes as Earth's lungs, it is almost poetic to think of volcanoes as the planet's breathing organs. Beneath the crust, molten rock is constantly forming gases as it melts and shifts. Those gases build pressure, and when pathways open through vents, fissures, or sudden eruptions, they escape in great exhalations. Some volcanoes breathe slowly, in long sighs of steam from fumaroles and hot springs. Visit places like Iceland or Yellowstone, and you will see this gentler breathing firsthand. Plumes of vapor rising quietly from cracks in the earth, reminding visitors that the ground itself is alive. Other volcanoes breathe violently in explosions that blacken the sky and reshape continents. Both forms of exhalation are part of the same planetary cycle. A balance of pressure, heat, and release. The human witness. For as long as humans have lived alongside volcanoes, we have felt their power. Ancient civilizations revered them as gods, demons, or doorways to the underworld. To stand near a mountain that suddenly roars with fire is to feel the breath of the planet directly. Hot and undeniable. In Roman times, the eruption of Vesuvius in 79 CE buried Pompeii in ash and pumice, preserving a moment of life and death in extraordinary detail. To the survivors, it must have seemed as though the sky itself had fallen, choking the air with sulfur and smoke. Yet that same eruption added nutrients to the soil, enriching farmland for centuries to come. Destruction and renewal are inseparable. Modern science has given us instruments to measure the gases volcanoes release. Satellites track the sulfur plumes, seismographs listen to the tremors, and gas sensors record the exhalations. But even with technology, eruptions remind us how small we are before the vast breadth of the earth. Delicate balance. The gases volcanoes release are not merely destructive or incidental. They are part of a balance that has allowed life to flourish. Without volcanic carbon dioxide, Earth might have been locked in perpetual ice. Without volcanic water vapor, there may never have been oceans. Even now, volcanic activity replenishes the air with substances that feed the cycle of climate and chemistry. The balance, however, is delicate, okay? Too much volcanic activity at once, like the massive eruptions of Earth's past, known as flood basalts, has been linked to mass extinctions, okay? The Siberian Traps eruption, about 252 million years ago, released vast quantities of carbon dioxide and sulfur, warming the planet and acidifying oceans, contributing to the largest extinction event in Earth's history. Volcanoes are not just gentle breathers. Sometimes they inhale too deeply and exhale catastrophically, breathing fire, breathing life-giving with their destructive potential. Volcanoes are reminders of Earth's vitality. Every plume of steam, every trickle of lava, every explosion into the sky demonstrates that the planet is alive, still shaping itself, still renewing its surface and its air. The air you breathe now carries within it the memory of those fiery breaths. When you look at a distant volcano, quiet and snow-capped, it may seem asleep, but beneath, gases are forming, moving, gathering strength. One day, they may rise again in a column of fire that touches the sky. That breath will join the endless exchange of the atmosphere, linking deep earth to the air above. So, as you drift tonight, imagine the slow breathing of the planet, the quiet fumaroles, the simmering chambers, the exhalations of fire and gas that remind us that air is never still, never finished. It is always being made, renewed, okay, and reshaped. The atmosphere is not only above us, it is born from below, from the fiery heart of the earth itself. And every breath you take carries a faint echo of volcanoes that breathed long before you, and will breathe long after. Asterisk, the air above our heads may seem light, intangible, and fleeting, but much of its story is written not in the sky, but in the restless depths of the oceans. There, beneath rolling waves and the rhythmic rise and fall of tides, air finds another home. The seas do not merely reflect the sky, they converse with it. There are reservoirs of gases, vast and patient, holding the breath of the world in ways we can scarcely imagine. Every ripple on the surface masks an unseen exchange. Its winds skim the water. They press gases down into its skin. Carbon dioxide dissolves, oxygen mingles, nitrogen slips between liquid molecules. The sea becomes a second atmosphere, a hidden twin to the one we live within. And just as the sky shapes the seas with storms and warmth, so do the seas shape the sky, releasing what they have gathered, holding back what might overwhelm. For centuries, sailors and poets looked upon the ocean as a mirror, reflecting clouds, and colors, moods, and tempests. Yet, science reveals that the ocean is more than mirror. It is lung and library. It takes in, it stores, and it slowly breathes back. The balance of our air depends upon this invisible exchange, a dialogue that stretches across centuries. The patience of dissolution. Imagine a single bubble of air drifting beneath the surface. It presses against the surrounding water, its molecules seeping outward one by one. Carbon dioxide dissolves more easily than oxygen. Nitrogen lingers longer in its gaseous form. With each passing moment, equilibrium is sought. The sea, like a vast sponge, soaks in what the sky provides. But unlike a sponge, it does not immediately release its hold. Instead, it keeps gases folded into its body, locked away in cold depths, where they may remain for decades or even millennia. Currents carry this stored breath downward. In the frigid waters of the polar oceans, gas-laden water sinks, slipping beneath warmer layers to join the great conveyor belts of circulation. This global journey is slow, measured in centuries. A breath taken in the North Atlantic may not return to the surface until long after civilizations have risen and fallen, until languages have shifted and empires dissolved. To breathe with the ocean, then, is to breathe across time itself. Carbon's restless cycle of all gases. Carbon dioxide tells the most intricate story. It is drawn down eagerly by the sea, dissolving into water where it transforms, shifting between forms, carbonic acid, bicarbonate, carbonate. It is stored not simply as gas, but as chemistry, locked into balances that govern the sea's nature. Without this patient absorption, our skies would hold far more carbon than they do today, and Earth's warmth would rise with unbearable speed. Yet, the ocean's kindness is not without consequence. As carbon dissolves, the water grows more acidic, subtly altering its balance. Shells of tiny plankton, once secure, begin to thin. Coral reefs, those silent architects of marine cities, strain under the burden. The ocean that has long buffered the sky begins to feel the weight of its service. Still, the exchange continues. With each wave that crashes and folds, with each bubble born of foam, carbon dioxide moves between sky and sea. A billion breaths, all shared, all unseen. The ocean's breath of oxygenated carbon tells a tale of burden. Oxygen tells a tale of gift. For while land plants clothe our world with oxygen, much of the supply comes from the seas. Tiny phytoplankton, invisible yet innumerable, draw sunlight into their bodies, split water molecules, and exhale oxygen into the currents. It drifts upward, mingling with air, feeding lungs across continents. Every second breath we take owes its existence to these unseen gardens drifting beneath the waves. This oxygen is not only released, is stored. Cold waters, particularly in the polar seas, absorb and preserve oxygen in abundance. As these waters sink and flow, they carry reservoirs of breath to distant places, nourishing creatures in the deep who live far from sunlight. It is strange to think, the air we breathe at this moment may once have been drawn by plankton in the South Pacific, stored in a current that traveled thousands of miles before releasing its gift. Our lungs are linked to oceans we may never see. Reservoirs in motion. To call the ocean a reservoir is not to imply stillness. Unlike a lake behind its dam, the seas are restless. Winds churn their surfaces, currents twist and tumble, tides surge and withdraw. The gases within are stirred and spread, shifting constantly between depths and surfaces. Consider the upwelling zones along coasts, where deep waters rise, bringing with them not only nutrients, but gases stored for centuries. Suddenly, what was hidden in darkness re-enters the cycle, fueling blooms of plankton, reshaping weather, altering climate patterns. These upwellings are like exhalations, long-held breaths returning to the sky. And when volcanoes erupt beneath the sea, they add new voices to this dialogue. Gases burst upward, mingling with currents, feeding into the global exchange. Even in destruction, the planet breathes. The ocean's memory, there is a kind of memory in the water. Each molecule of gas absorbed tells of a moment in the atmosphere's history. Scientists drilling into ice or drawing samples from the depths find traces of climates long gone higher carbon in times of warmth, lower in ages of ice. The seas record these fluctuations, just as the rings of trees record droughts and rains. To peer into these waters is to glimpse the past. To measure their changes is to forecast the future. For if the ocean grows too full of carbon or too warm to hold oxygen, the sky above will soon reflect it. The two are bound in a cycle that cannot be broken, only shifted, only strained, breathing together, and so the ocean breathes with the sky, slowly, deeply, with a patience that dwarfs our own. It does not gasp or sigh. It inhales across centuries, exhales across millennia. Each tide is a heartbeat, each current a vessel, each wave a whispered exchange. For us, breath is fragile, fleeting, repeated with urgency. For the ocean, breath is vast and enduring. It holds the air of ages, the size of forests long turned to stone, the carbon of volcanoes that no longer stand. When we draw breath on land, we borrow from the sea. To listen to the ocean is to hear silence filled with memory. To stand before its horizon is to gaze at a mirror that does not reflect, but converses. It speaks in exchanges too vast for words, in patience too long for memory. And perhaps, in the rhythm of its waves, we find a reflection of our own breath, in, out, in, out, in, out, in, echo of the earth itself, a reminder that the air within us is never truly ours. It is borrowed, shared, held, and released, moving between sky and sea, between centuries and moments, between silence and life. Above the stillness of Earth's skies, beyond the thin protective veil of atmosphere, there are wanderers, silent, cold travelers, moving on orbits older than memory, older even than the mountains or seas below. They are comet-CC bodies that drift through the deep, dark corridors of the solar system, carrying within them a cargo of frozen water, dust, and gas. To the eye, they appear sudden, rare, almost miraculous, a streak of brightness with a glowing tail stretching across the heavens. But in truth, they have always been with us, patient and timeless, looping again and again through vast ellipses that can take thousands of years to complete. Each comet carries whispers of creation. Locked within their frozen shells are noble gases, carbon dioxide, methane, and tiny grains of dust that date back to the very birth of the solar system. They are not mere ornaments of the night sky. They are couriers bringing matter to Earth that would become part of the air we now breathe, the water that fills our oceans, and perhaps even the seeds of life itself. Long ago, when Earth was young, its surface was hostile. The planet had formed hot, molten, scarred by constant bombardment from rocks and fragments of debris left over from the chaos of planetary formation. Any early atmosphere it had was thin, unstable, easily swept away by the violence of solar. Whence Earth needed a gift, a replenishment, and in time, it arrived falling from the sky in glowing streaks, pounding into rock and sea, scattering ice and vapor. Comets delivered to gases, trapped inside their frozen bodies, seeped into the planet's hair. Their water turned into rivers, lakes, oceans, forming reservoirs vast enough to cradle continents. Their carbon compounds mingled with Earth's chemistry, laying the foundation for a breathable atmosphere. What we take in now with every quiet inhale, oxygen mingled with nitrogen, traces of argon. Whispers of carbon dioxide was influenced by these celestial visitors. Imagine a night tens of millions of years ago. A small comet approaches Earth, invisible until it reaches the edge of the atmosphere. Suddenly, it blazes an incandescent streak burning across the sky, untouched by human light. To any creatures alive, it would have seemed like a message from the heavens. When it struck, it released not only force and fire, but vapor. Noble gases rising upward, dust spreading outward, ice melting into air. Small addition, but an addition, nonetheless. It's layer upon layer of these cometary gifts built into something vast. The atmosphere as we know it, the quiet miracle of breathing, owes part of its existence to those silent wanderers. With every breath, we are connected not only to forests and oceans, but also to those frozen visitors that still roam the edges of the solar system, waiting to return. Even now, comets continue their patient orbits. Some reside in the Kuiper belt beyond Neptune's path. Others dwell even farther in the Oort cloud, a sphere of icy fragments that encircles the solar system like a distant halo. Most will never fall toward the sun, but a few, nudged by gravity, will journey inward. A sun that their frozen hearts awaken, releasing vapor and dust that trail behind them in luminous tails. From Earth, we look up in wonder. We see beauty. What we do not see is the chemistry, the slow breathing of gases into space, a continuation of the cycle that began billions of years ago. For centuries, comets were feared. They were seen as omens of destruction, messengers of plague or war. Their sudden appearance seemed unnatural, a disturbance in the regularity of the stars. Yet even in their unpredictability, they were carrying something essential. They were delivering the building blocks of life, the raw ingredients of air and water, even as they inspired fear. What once seemed like warnings were in fact offerings. Consider, the noble gases are gone, neon xenon that slip invisibly into the air. They are inert, unwilling to react, timeless in their persistence. They do not vanish or burn. Instead, they linger, silent markers of ancient arrivals. When scientists measure the ratios of these gases in Earth's atmosphere, they find traces that hint at cometary origins. Whispers of a history written not only on Earth, but also in the cold reaches of space. Think, too, of water. Every sip you take may contain molecules once locked in a comet's frozen core. Every cloud drifting above a mountain range may hold vapor that began its journey in the Oort cloud. The oceans, vast as they are, carry in their waves the story of icy messengers that fell from the sky. To breathe is to take part in this continuity, to welcome the gifts of wanderers that still drift silently in the dark at times. Fragments of comets still fall. Meteor showers are their reminders, small flecks of dust burning against the upper air. The Perseids in August, the Leonids in November. These are the remnants of cometary paths. Streams of debris Earth passes through as it orbits the sun. Each streak of light is a farewell, a final exhale of a comet long gone. And in those moments, as people look up from fields or city streets, watching thin trails of brightness dissolve, the connection becomes almost visible. The air we breathe, the water we drink, the very conditions of life on Earth, all of it carries a thread that leads outward, far beyond our world, into the frozen hearts of comets still waiting to return. The whisper of comets is not loud, does not announce itself. It is patient, ancient, layered, but it is with us, always woven into every breath. When you exhale now, the air you release mingles with gases once locked in the heart of a comet. They traveled across millions of miles of empty space, endured countless orbits of darkness, and were finally released into Earth's cradle. And now, in silence, they leave your lungs and drift outward once more, carried by the endless movements of the atmosphere. The comet's gift is eternal, not a blaze of destruction, but a whisper soft, enduring, reminding us that even the smallest fragments of the universe can shape the air of a planet. Asterisk, the air you breathe tonight is not only sky, it's not only clouds and forests. It is memory. It is the faint trace of every city that once lived, every street that once echoed with footsteps, every fire that once burned to cook bread or melt bronze. In the Roman world, air was already a citizen of its own kind, drifting through forums and temples, weaving between marble pillars and wooden stalls. Markets in the heart of Rome exhaled the scent of olive oil and fish. Bakers stoked ovens, filling streets with smoke that rose and dissolved into the wider sky. The air carried the sound of merchants calling out their wares, the cries of animals bound for sacrifice, and the incense smoldering in honor of distant gods. Each molecule floated free, some carried upward by heat, others settling into shaded courtyards where they lingered against stone walls still warm from the sun. Breath was shared endlessly between the senator's speech and the murmur of the crowd, between the chanting of priests and the children chasing pigeons through the square. The same invisible atmosphere that swirled around the Senate steps found its way into the cramped apartments of laborers, up narrow stairways, past flickering oil lamps, through cracks in clay windows, seeped into amphitheaters, where vast gatherings inhaled as one, waiting for the moment the gladiators struck, and then exhaled in waves of cheers and dread. Air, in its silence, witnessed. It took on the smell of charred wood after a fire, of perfumed oils poured onto statues, of crushed herbs scattered beneath sandals. It traveled in caravans, leaving Rome, bearing not just goods, but the dust of 1,000 streets stirred up by wheels and hooves. In Alexandria, in Athens, in the provincial cities of Gaul and Hispania, air moved among markets and homes in just the same way, holding on to fragments of smoke, spices, and speech. Though centuries have passed, the molecules that once wound through these ancient cities did not vanish. They were scattered. They rose. They mingled with higher winds. They traveled with storms across seas. Slowly, invisibly, they joined the global breath that has never ended. Tonight, when you inhale, you take in particles once warmed by a Roman torch, once stirred by Caesar's passing, once infused with prayers rising from 1,000 temples. In this way, every city lingers. Babylon and Athens, Memphis and Carthage, their voices are gone, their stones often toppled, but their air has not entirely disappeared. A faint trace persists, moving ceaselessly, impossible to hold, yet present in every lung. And so you breathe, not just the moment you are in now, but also the accumulated exhale of cities long turned to ruins. Each breath is a connection to lives once lived, 2 mornings long ended, 2 nights filled with lamps and stories. The air does not forget, carries everything forward, always waiting for another inhale. The air you breathe tonight is older than you can imagine. Each breath fills your lungs with molecules that have circled the globe countless times, shared between strangers, ancestors, and those long gone. That same oxygen, now sustaining you once, passed through the body of a poet, fueling the spark of verse whispered beneath candlelight. It once gave life to kings as they paced through echoing halls. Their words carried into the air where they dissolved, yet never vanished. The atmosphere is a vast archive, a memory without paper or stone. Every inhale is a meeting with the past. The nitrogen drifting into you may have filled the chest of an ancient hunter waiting silently in the forest. A particle of carbon dioxide might have risen from the lips of a philosopher as he spoke beneath the colonnades of Athens. Tiny remnants of human breath never truly disappear. They move on, changing companions, but continuing their endless journey. Generations upon generations leaned on this same invisible resource. Mothers exhaled lullabies into the air of cramped cottages. Farmers sighed over fields of grain, their effort released into the wind. Lovers whispered promises that floated upward, dissolved into the atmosphere, and were carried away by the gentle currents of air. None of it was wasted. None of it was lost. This continuity is a quiet comfort. You are not alone in your breathing. Chorus that began before memory, it will continue long after. The poets, the kings, the nameless millions who lived ordinary lives. They are all here still, not in monuments, not in statues, but in the simple act of breathing. The breath you take is not only yours, it has been shared endlessly, passed from body to body, age to age, carried over oceans and through empires, binding the living and the dead in an unseen communion. The air does not forget. It only continues, carrying us forward together. Asterisk air is never still. It drifts, sways, circles, rises, and falls. What enters your lungs tonight will not stay. It may already be on its way toward another continent. It's carried by currents that do not stop from mountains, oceans, or human borders. An atom of oxygen or nitrogen you exhale this evening could circle the entire globe within the span of a year. This is the quiet truth of the atmosphere. It is never truly yours, nor mine, nor anyone's. It belongs everywhere at once. Close your eyes and imagine the air around you as a great, transparent river. Like rivers of water, it has no banks, no edges to contain it. A kiss washes over plains, slips through canyons, curls between towers of glass and stone. In the same way that rivers eventually reach the sea, every parcel of air is destined to travel on, far from the place where it was. Breathe. You may think of a room as still and closed. Yet, even within sealed walls, air is restless, drifting in eddies invisible to the eye. What feels confined is always on its way elsewhere. Consider the journey of one particle of nitrogen, making up the bulk of the air we breathe. Released from your lungs in the stillness of night, it drifts upward, caught by gentle convection, the warmth of a lamp, the flicker of a candle, or the slight change of evening temperature nudges it toward the ceiling. So hours later, it leaves through an open window, joining the faint push of a nighttime breeze. What began as part of your body's rhythm is now indistinguishable from the vast sweep of atmosphere. In a matter of weeks, it may cross seas, pass over distant forests, and settle briefly in air breathed by someone you will never meet. The atmosphere is not a single layer, but a stratified ocean of gases, each region flowing with its own pace. At ground level, air moves with the daily churn of winds, gusts shaped by local terrain, warmed by the sun, cooled by shadow. These currents move with remarkable speed. A molecule released in Asia can find itself above North America in only a few days. Farther still, above the weather, air thins but continues to circle, circling endlessly. It's never fixed to one place. It is in this ceaseless movement that air acquires its quality of belonging everywhere. Unlike water locked into a river basin or soil fixed to a valley, air is democratic. Every person, every creature, every forest, and every fire contributes to the same pool. With each inhale and exhale, we borrow from a shared reservoir and then return it. Nothing is truly kept. Every lungful you take contains atoms, once part of ancient breaths, strangers and ancestors alike. Imagine for a moment the vastness of this sharing. Okay, there are roughly 10 quintillion molecules in a single breath. And because air mixes so thoroughly, the probability is high that each of us is inhaling molecules once exhaled by historical figures, emperors, shepherds, poets, or children at play centuries ago. Perhaps the atom you breathe now was once released in laughter by a worker hauling stone to build a medieval cathedral. Perhaps another drifted through the streets of Beijing during the height of the Ming Dynasty. Time has passed, but the atoms remain, endlessly circulated. This is why air is often described as the true commons of Earth. Land can be divided, oceans charted, but the atmosphere resists ownership, tempts to draw borders across it, measuring airspace as though it could be contained. Yet the molecules do not respect such lines. They pass easily from one country to the next, indifferent to human maps. When smoke rises from a burning forest, its particles do not ask permission before drifting into the sky of a neighbor. When pollen bursts from spring meadows, it drifts without regard for fences. And when a city exhales its carbon, those gases soon join the larger global stream, indistinguishable from emissions elsewhere. This endless mingling is both gift and challenge. It is a gift because it means the air that sustains you is vast, resilient, and continuously replenished by the breathing forests, oceans, and life of the planet. Yet, it is also a challenge because nothing emitted into the atmosphere stays local. Pollution travels. Dust from the Sahara settles on the Amazon, providing nutrients to its soil. Soot from distant wildfires has been found on glaciers, darkening their surfaces. Even the faint traces of nuclear tests from decades ago are detectable. Having dispersed evenly across hemispheres, the invisibility of this travel can make it easy to forget. Unlike rivers or tides, the atmosphere does not announce its flow. It is transparent, odorless, without obvious form. But instruments show us its paths, whether balloons, satellites, and tracer studies revealed that air is constantly moving in arcs across the globe. When scientists release harmless isotopes into the atmosphere, they can track their circulation, sometimes completing global loops in under a year. This is how we know that what you breathe tonight is not fixed to this place, but will become part of a planetary circulation. There is something humbling in that thought. The molecules filling your lungs now will not remain with you for long. Within seconds, they will leave, carrying with them traces of your body's warmth, your own chemistry, and begin a journey you cannot follow. Perhaps in months, they will pass into the breath of an animal high in the Andes, or a farmer walking through fields in Central Africa. Perhaps they will rest briefly in Arctic air before sinking south again. And in time, they will circle back, perhaps even returning to you in some distant year, though indistinguishable from the billions of others you breathe daily. It also means that humanity itself is stitched together by this invisible web long before cables, telegraphs, or satellites. There was air quietly connecting everyone. The sigh of a woman in ancient Mesopotamia, the laughter of children in a Roman marketplace, the chant of monks in a medieval abbey. All of them left traces in the atmosphere. Their exact words are lost, but the molecules linger, redistributed endlessly. To breathe is to participate in this ancient exchange, to take in the fragments of lives beyond counting. Even now, you exhale, some of what leaves your body will become nourishment for plants. A carbon dioxide, waste to you, is life to them. A single tree can draw in vast amounts of it, turning it into sugars, wood, leaves, and roots. And when the tree exhales, releasing oxygen, you or someone else may one day breathe it in again. In this way, your own breath becomes part of a cycle much larger than yourself, an invisible communion between species, maintained through atmospheres, endless circulation. Think, too, of the ocean, always breathing with the sky. Waves break and release sprays of salt and gas. Plankton absorb carbon dioxide, photosynthesize, and return oxygen. These exchanges blurred the boundaries between sea and air, creating another path on which your exhaled breath might find its way into distant waters before returning again. The ocean holds these gases for centuries, then slowly releases them back, patient and unhurried. At times, humans have tried to imagine air as still, clean, separable from the rest of the world, But the truth is that every act, burning, breathing, building feeds into the same global reservoir. The industrial chimneys of the 19th century poured out smoke that drifted across continents. Decades later, scientists sampling polar ice discovered those very emissions trapped in bubbles, showing how air preserves its own history. Even today, when a volcano erupts, the sulfur dioxide it emits may circle the Earth, influencing climates far from the eruption itself. Invisible travelers, these molecules passing from place to place without rest. Their journeys remind us that nothing we exhale is lost, that the world is bound together in currents unseen. Each breath we take is not a solitary act, but part of a grand exchange between people and forests, between oceans and skies, between past and present. So, as you lie here, breathing slowly, think of the unseen voyagers departing from you now. They rise softly into the room, blend with the night air, and drift outward into the great circulation. They do not vanish. They will wander the world, touched by sunlight, carried by storms, mixed into the fabric of distant skies, decayed, and in time, other travelers will return, entering your lungs with the next inhale. The exchange never ends. It is the quiet rhythm of Earth itself, the breath that binds every life across centuries. The air around you is not still. It has been everywhere, touched everything, and it will continue its journey long after you rest. Invisible, tireless, and shared by all, it is both ancient and new, endless and immediate. Each breath is proof of this hidden movement, atoms, drifting, always drifting, carrying with them the memory of the world. Asterisk air has always been more than the space we draw into our lungs. 8. It is also a silent chronicle, a book written not in ink or paper, but in shifting mixtures of invisible gases. Each breath you take contains a record of ancient ages, a script of warmth and ice, fire and flood, growth and famine. Though it feels weightless and empty, the atmosphere is a vast library of time, and every molecule carries a trace of Earth's shifting climate. Imagine, now, the air as it floats around you, molecules of nitrogen, calm and steady, filling most of the space. Molecules of oxygen, eager to bind with life, flowing like an unseen river. Smaller but more decisive, the gases we call carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, each tiny and rare, yet strong enough to shape the fate of whole epochs. Their balance is delicate, and their variations mark the long rhythm of the planets. Breathing to understand this quiet chronicle, we can think of the air not as a constant, but as a story that changes chapter by chapter. There were times when carbon dioxide filled the sky in great abundance, when volcanoes poured their fire into the air and ancient seas boiled with life. In those eras, the planet grew warm, lush with ferns the size of houses and reptiles that towered above the rivers. There were other times when the gases shifted the other way, when the earth cooled and ice sheets crawled down across the continents and the air grew thin with cold restraint. Every change, every fluctuation left a mark. Today, scientists drill deep into polar ice, extracting cores that stretch back hundreds of thousands of years. In those frozen cylinders lie bubbles of ancient air, trapped at the moment of their fall. To hold such a core is to hold a time capsule. Inside are whispers of mammoths grazing on tundra, whispers of forests spreading north, whispers of glaciers retreating and advancing in slow, grinding patience. The ice, through these bubbles, allows us to hear the language of the past climate, a language written in parts per million, in ratios of oxygen isotopes, in the simple composition of breath. It is a strange idea that the very air we breathe tonight was once shaped by forests that no longer exist, by seas that have shifted their boundaries, by lives long gone. Think of a Roman fire smoldering in a temple hearth. The carbon released there still moves, still swirls, still waits to enter a body centuries later. Think of a medieval field where farmers burned stubble after harvest. A smoke, carried in molecules of carbon dioxide, has not vanished. It has merged into the vast library of air, diffused and diluted, but never destroyed. Even earlier, think of volcanic winters, when ash blotted out the sun and cooled the planet. When carbon dioxide released in waves, balanced later by oceans. Slow absorption. All of it remains inscribed in the mix of gases, in the quiet ratios that make the atmosphere what it is today. And in the most recent chapters, we see the handwriting grow faster, sharper, less steady, since the beginning of the industrial age. The amount of carbon dioxide has risen at a rate not seen in hundreds of thousands of years. Where once it hovered around 280 parts per million, it now surpasses 420. Each increase is not just a number, but a shift in the story of thickening of the blanket around the Earth, a slowing of the heat's escape, a subtle but powerful tilt toward warmth. The gases tell us a new chapter has begun, one written by human hands. Yet, even as we read this record, the air itself remains calm, almost indifferent. It does not announce the change, simply carries it. You might breathe in a molecule tonight that escaped from a factory chimney in 1850, one released from a peat bog as it thawed in 2020. You cannot tell the difference, nor can your lungs. But the planet notices. It's the oceans, the ice caps, the forests. They all respond in their own way to the mixture of gases, adjusting slowly, absorbing what they can, altering currents and seasons. Consider the patience of the ocean. When carbon dioxide grows abundant in the sky, the seas draw it in, dissolving it into their waters. Some of it becomes food for plankton, tiny drifters that live briefly and die, sinking into the depths. Some becomes acid, shifting the balance of shells and reefs, but the process is slow, measured not in years, but in centuries. The ocean is a vast recorder of climate, storage chamber where gases hide for a while before returning, centuries later, to the air above. Consider also the forests. Each leaf is a reader of the air's story. When carbon dioxide is plentiful, leaves drink deeply, growing with abundance. When the balance shifts, forests thin, retreating or advancing with the gases that surround them, in their rings, in their pollen, in the soil beneath them. They keep their own record of the air's shifting tone. Together with the ice and ocean, they form the memory of climate, the archive of breath. When you breathe now, you join that story. The oxygen you inhale will bind to your blood, will fuel the quiet fire in your cells, and then return as carbon dioxide, entering the atmosphere. Once more, that molecule may travel for years, circling the globe, mixing into forests, oceans, and ice. Eventually, it may be recorded, frozen in snow, preserved in ice, waiting for some future reader to discover it. In this way, you, too, become part of the archive. Your life leaves a mark in the composition of the air, however small, however diffuse. This is perhaps the most humbling truth. The climate of the earth is not just a backdrop, but a collective creation. It is written in every breath of every creature, in every fire lit for warmth, in every forest felled or planted, in every ocean current that stirs. 8. It is a story older than humanity, but one humanity now edits with urgency and speed. And still, the air drifts gently through your room tonight, giving no hint of alarm, carrying only the record of what has been written. Imagine the vast sky above you, filled with currents that stretch across continents. In one direction, air drifts from deserts carrying dry dust. In another, it carries moisture from oceans. Within these currents, the gases mingle, mixing ancient with new, distant with near. A single breath may hold atoms once breathed by a trilobite, atoms that passed through the lungs of a bird, atoms that fell from a star. And woven into this breath is the proportion of carbon dioxide, methane, and oxygen that tells us what age we live in, what climate we inhabit. The story continues, wordless and patient. Ice sheets still grow and shrink. Oceans still absorb and release. Volcanoes still exhale their fire. And above all, life continues to breathe, to exchange, to shape. The air, climate is not a fixed condition, but a flowing text, endlessly revised, endlessly shifting. When you exhale, you contribute one more sentence to this story, one more phrase in the language of gases. So, as you rest, think of the air as an invisible book drifting around you. It is a book no one can close, a book that contains every age of Earth within it. To breathe is to read, to write, and to join in the quiet authorship of the climate. The air is not just what sustains you, it is also what remembers you. And in this moment, as you draw your next breath, you are both reader and writer in the story of Earth's atmosphere. A story written in gas. A story still unfolding, softly and endlessly as the air itself. Air feels like nothing at all, slips between your fingers, moves quietly against your skin, fills your lungs without resistance. And yet, this nothingness has weight. The atmosphere is a vast ocean of unseen substance, pressing down on everything, everywhere, always. Even now, as you rest, the weight of the sky is upon you. Imagine yourself sitting at sea level. Above your head is not just empty space, but a column of air reaching nearly 60 miles upward. The molecules within that column, oxygen, nitrogen, argon, carbon dioxide, each one contributes its tiny share of mass. Together, they press upon you with the weight of nearly 15 pounds on every square inch of your body. Your shoulders, your chest, your arms, each inch of skin carries this burden. If you could somehow feel it all at once, it would be like lying beneath a heavy stone slab. Yet your body, evolved under this pressure, balances it perfectly. Blood pushes outward with equal force. Bones and muscles withstand the load. You do not notice. The weight of air is hidden in equilibrium. This is the paradox of a breath. Invisible, intangible, but never without presence. The sky, in silence, rests its full body upon you. For ancient philosophers, this truth was elusive. To them, air seemed insubstantial, closer to spirit than to matter. The Greeks called it pneuma, both breath and soul. The Athenians called it chi, the vital energy flowing through all living things. It took centuries before people began to weigh air, to measure it as something physical. Evangelista Torricelli, in the 17th century, filled a glass tube with mercury and inverted it into a dish. The column of liquid did not fall all the way down. Something unseen held it up. That unseen force was the weight of the atmosphere pressing upon the dish, balancing the mercury's fall. From this experiment, the barometer was born, and with it, the revelation: air is heavy, heavy, and restless. The atmosphere is not uniform. Warm air rises, cool air sinks, winds shift, storms build. Wherever pressure is uneven, the air begins to move, searching for balance. Every gust of wind is the sky trying to even out its own weight. You can think of weather as the atmosphere's way of rearranging its load. Storm is the sky redistributing itself, and still, for every movement, the weight remains, a soft reminder that life is lived at the bottom of an invisible ocean. Stand on a mountaintop, and you feel the difference. At higher altitudes, less air presses down from above. The weight lessens. Your lungs notice first. Breathing feels thinner, harder. Oxygen molecules are fewer, scattered wider apart. Travelers to great heights sometimes grow dizzy or faint. Their bodies long for the heavier air below. Mountain peoples, living for centuries where the pressure is light, have adapted in ways subtle and deep. Their blood carries oxygen more efficiently. Their hearts beat differently. The body remembers the weight it was born under and reshapes itself when that weight shifts. The oceans, too, remember. A diver slipping beneath the waves feels the truth reversed. Each descent adds water above, the pressure multiplying with every meter. At 10 meters, the diver bears twice the burden of sea level, the weight of water and the weight of the sky combined. At 30 meters, it is 4 times. At 100, it is 11 times. The body, so perfectly matched to air, struggles under water's crushing embrace. But what is striking is the similarity. Whether in the sea of water or the sea of air, pressure defines existence. You are always immersed. Think of the history hidden in this weight. The pressure you feel tonight is not constant across all time. In the deep past, Earth's atmosphere was thicker, heavier, laden with carbon dioxide and methane. Volcanoes exhaled gases in great quantities, and the air pressed more firmly against the land. Then came changes. Oceans drew down carbon, plants multiplied, oxygen spread. The mixture shifted, so did the pressure. The weight of a breath at different times was a different burden in the Carboniferous age, some 300 million years. AGD, oxygen was richer, perhaps 35% of the atmosphere, rather than today's 21. With that heaviness of oxygen, insects grew to monstrous size. Dragonflies with wings like hawks, millipedes longer than a man. They could thrive because air pressed with more fuel in every breath. Later, ages thinned again. Air is never fixed, always remade, always rewriting its balance, and yet the weight remained. Always pressing, always unseen. Even now, scientists watch the pressure of the atmosphere with great care. A change of only a few millibars can alter weather, guide storms, or signal disaster. When a hurricane deepens, its central pressure drops, the air within the storm growing lighter, while the air around rushes inward to balance the loss. Pilots read their altimeters, set by pressure, to know their height. Farmers track barometers to predict rain. Mountaineers, climbers, and explorers measure air's thinness to prepare their lungs for ascent. For ordinary lives, these changes are subtle. A storm may be coming, and you may feel a dull heaviness in your joints, a shift in your mood. You are sensitive to air's weight, even if you do not know it. Taps, you notice your ears pop on an airplane. Tad, too, is the body reminding you. Pressure surrounds, and you are always adjusting at the smallest scale. Air's weight is carried by its molecules, each striking surfaces with tiny force. Billions upon billions of collisions create the push you feel. If you could freeze time and see them, you would find a chaotic dance, nitrogen and oxygen spinning, bouncing, vibrating. The pressure is their collective insistence, a constant drumming of invisible hands upon your skin. This is why a sealed bottle can resist the squeeze of your grip. Inside, molecules beat against the walls as urgently as those outside. Release the cap, and the balance shifts. A hiss of air equalizes the pressure, and the world returns to calm. Even the smallest breath of air carries the weight of countless atoms moving endlessly. There is poetry in this hidden load. You are cradled by it, pressed by it, made possible by it. Without pressure, lungs could not draw breath. Without weight, water could not boil at familiar warmth. Without the heaviness of air, weather would cease, and with it, life's rhythms of rain and wind. The invisible sea is not burden, but balance. Think of how air presses equally in every direction. You are not crushed because the pressure is not only downward, but inward, outward, all around. You are suspended, balanced like a pearl in water. The weight of a breath is not simply a force, it is an embrace. And there is something humbling in this. The pressure upon you tonight is the same that pressed upon the first humans who stood on African plains, the same that pressed upon mammoths, upon dinosaurs, upon trilobites in ancient seas. The same, yet not the same. Its mixture altered, its story rewritten. Still, the embrace continues, linking every age, every creature, every life. As you rest now, the weight of air is all around. It is patient, invisible, constant. It is not a burden you must bear, but a reminder that you are held within the world, not apart from it. Every breath you take is shaped by this pressure. Every heartbeat answers to it. You are part of the balance, part of the ocean of sky. The air presses gently against you, and you press back. Without noticing, you live in dialogue with it, and though unseen, it is never absent. The weight of a breath is the weight of history, of balance, of life itself. Breathe in slowly. Feel the gentle tide of air filling your lungs. This invisible current does not belong to you alone. It has no owner, no beginning, no end. The molecules that move into your chest have been shaped, carried, and shared by countless lives across the earth. This is the shared atmosphere, one endless circulation, binding every living thing into a single, quiet web. Consider how easily air passes between us. A single exhalation drifts outward, mingling with the room, thinning into the sky, dissolving into the great invisible ocean that surrounds the earth. Within moments, it is indistinguishable from the whole. Within days, its molecules scatter across continents. Within months, they may cross oceans, carried by winds we cannot see but can always feel. Your breath is not yours alone. It becomes ours, theirs, everyone's. The forests take it in, leaves open their tiny mouths, stomata, and sip the carbon you release. In return, they exhale oxygen, clean and silent, for you to breathe again. This cycle is not a transaction, but a rhythm, a dance older than civilization. The green of forests and the red of blood are linked by this endless trade. One cannot exist without the other. The oceans breathe as well. Waves churn, mixing gases into their vast depths. Tiny plankton, invisible to the naked eye, drink the carbon from the sky and gift back oxygen. More than half of what fills our lungs originates from these drifting drifters. When you inhale, part of that breath began as the sigh of a planktonic bloom, rising in sunlight, drifting with tides. Even the soil beneath your feet breathes. Microbes exhale in the dark. Roots draw air through hidden tunnels, and the ground exchanges gases with the sky. You walk upon a breathing surface, unaware that every step presses gently on an invisible exchange. The silent partnership of life and atmosphere. Air does not stop at the edge of human life. It circulates through animals, insects, and birds. The oxygen that fuels your mind tonight may, tomorrow, course through the veins of a sparrow, or a deer, or a fish moving just beneath the waves. In this way, every breath you take is kin to the breath of creatures you may never see. Air equalizes, erases distance, connects life without asking permission. Pause for a moment and notice the enormity of this. You are breathing the exhalations of forests, oceans, soils, creatures, and people. You are part of an endless loop that has circled for billions of years. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is separate. Every inhale is both deeply personal and completely shared. This shared atmosphere carries memory. The air you breathe tonight may still hold fragments of volcanic eruptions, carrying sulfur and ash in forms too faint for you to sense. It may hold the traces of ancient fires, the breath of mammoths, the size of early humans around a flame. It holds laughter, labor, war, song. Every exhale is etched into its drift. It remembers, even if we do not. Think of the places where this circulation moves. An atom exhaled in one moment may rise into the jet stream, circling the planet in days. It may fall into the stillness of a valley, held for weeks before moving again. It may be caught in a storm, whipped upward, frozen in a cloud, only to fall again as rain and return to the air with the warmth of the ground. Your breath becomes part of weather, of rivers in the sky, of invisible tides, and then, inevitably, it returns to another lung, perhaps far away, perhaps close by. Someone sleeping now, someone waking, someone laughing, someone grieving. All of us participate in this same invisible current. There is no divide. To breathe is to share. It is easy to imagine separation, nations, languages, borders, but air ignores such boundaries. The molecules in your lungs tonight may have passed through temples in India, deserts in Africa, glaciers in Antarctica. They may have moved across fields of wheat, across cities of stone, through jungles buzzing with life. This circulation is democracy at its most complete. All life is equal in breath. The shared atmosphere is also fragile. Its balance can shift. Too much carbon, and the rhythm changes. It's too much soot, and the clarity dims. Yet, even these changes are shared, carried by the same currents. Air teaches us that no action is truly isolated. What we burn here is inhaled there. What is exhaled in one place is absorbed in another. Still, the air persists. It finds balance, moving, mixing, spreading endlessly. It does not hoard, does not judge, simply carries. And in carrying, it unites. Tonight. As you lie still, you participate in this quiet exchange. You take in molecules once breathed by poets, by ancestors, by strangers, by forests, by oceans. You return them gently, adding your own rhythm to the circulation. You will forget each breath, yet the atmosphere remembers. It weaves your unseen contribution into its endless drift. Imagine this now. As you exhale, your breath rises, thins, and drifts outward. It joins the wind. It mingles with the breath of trees, oceans, animals. It moves toward someone else you will never meet. In this way, you are already connected, woven into the lives of others without needing to know their names. Every inhale is trust. Every exhale is release. Together, they are the pulse of a planet alive. So rest now. Let the air move easily. Know that it is shared, eternal, infinite in its circulation. You are never separate. You are always connected to forests, to oceans, to creatures, to strangers, to the past and to the future. The shared atmosphere carries us all. Pause for a moment. Inhale. Feel the air moving in, the quiet rise of your chest, the slow and steady filling of your lungs. That breath is now part of you, carrying oxygen into your bloodstream, binding itself to your body's chemistry. But it does not belong only to you. It is older than you, older than humanity, older even than mammals. The molecules swirling inside you have been here since Earth was young. They have flowed through time, across continents, across oceans, through the lungs of ancient creatures now turned to fossils. To breathe is to take part in history. Think of a mammoth standing on a windswept plain. Snow drifts across its shaggy coat. Its trunk curls upward as it pulls in a deep, icy breath. That same atmosphere, thinned by winter, brushed against its tusks and filled its chest. Molecules from that ancient exhalation still wander among us. Over tens of thousands of years, they have mingled with storms and forests, dissolved into oceans, risen back again. Tonight, they may pass through your lungs. The distance between your life and that mammoth is not as far as it seems. Aries. The bridge, or go farther back still. Imagine a fern taller than a house, growing in a swampy forest 300 million years ago. The Carboniferous world was thick with oxygen, much more than today. Dragonflies, the size of hawks, buzzed overhead, their wings beating in humid air. Each time the fern's leaves opened to the sun, it drew in carbon dioxide and released oxygen, filling the air with fuel for animal life. That oxygen was not consumed in a single instant. It joined the endless circulation, which of it bound into rocks and seas. But some of those atoms endure, looping endlessly, waiting for their turn again. Some now rest inside you, even older, and seas alive with trilobites. Air was being prepared in different form. The atmosphere was young then, unstable. Shifting tiny cyanobacteria in the water released oxygen as waste, changing Earth's chemistry forever. Before them, the world was almost breathless. After them, oxygen slowly became common enough to sustain complex life. That oxygen, the oxygen you breathe, still carries the imprint of those early organisms. Every breath is an inheritance from the most ancient of ancestors, microscopic and forgotten, yet essential to all who followed. When you inhale, you take in molecules with long stories. They may have drifted above deserts, mixed in monsoons, frozen into glaciers, been trapped in bubbles beneath the ice sheets of Greenland. They may have lifted smoke from Roman fires, clung to sails on Viking ships, brushed the canvas of medieval painters, carried the dust of battlefields, or drifted silently through empty halls of ruined palaces. To breathe is to participate in all of it. Your body becomes a temporary resting place for history. Consider how small a breath is. It's just a lungful, gone in seconds. Yet each breath is made of sextillions of molecules, colliding and separating, always moving, always reforming. When you exhale, those molecules do not vanish. They mix, spread, wander. A single breath you release tonight may reach the Arctic in a matter of months. Within a year, it may have circled the planet. Within decades, it may enter the lungs of people not yet born. In this way, breath is never private. It is part of the single shared atmosphere of Earth. Air erases boundaries. It does not recognize nations, walls, or centuries. The molecules in your chest right now may have risen from the lungs of an emperor, a shepherd, a miner, or a child. They may have carried the songs of birds or the cries of soldiers. They may have whispered across the grasslands where mammoths walked, or lingered in the silent waters where trilobites crawled. You are not separate from this past. You are breathing it in, carrying it forward, adding your own moment to the record. Even when we forget, the air remembers. In its endless circulation, it binds all lives together. A mammoth on the steppe and a human in a city share more than existence. They share breath. When you breathe, you are touching what they touched, repeating what they did. Their lives are gone, their bodies dust, but their air remains. The invisible archive of the atmosphere never closes. Notice the rhythm of your own breathing now. Inhale, exhale, slow, steady, continuous. That rhythm has been repeated by every creature that has ever lived. Fish drew oxygen through gills, insects, through spiracles, reptiles, through lungs. The mechanics differ, but the cycle is the same. To draw in air, to take what is needed, to release it again. Breath is the most ancient rhythm of life. It's the quiet drumbeat that unites us all. There is a humility in this. To breathe is not an act of ownership, but of borrowing. You do not own the air you breathe. You borrow it, use it briefly, and return it to the whole. This borrowing binds you to all who lived before and all who will live after. Breath is continuity, not possession. The same molecules flow through billions of lungs, billions of years, billions of lives. Each life, no matter how grand or humble, shares in the same atmosphere, and so, with every inhale you take in history, with every exhale you contribute to the future. You are both receiver and giver. The air you breathe tonight will be carried forward, mingled, remembered. Some of it may brush the fur of an animal deep in the forest. Some may rise to the mountains, drift overseas, or settle into the lungs of a child not yet born. Your breath, like theirs, is part of the same endless exchange, even as you rest now. Your breathing continues without effort, without command. The ancient molecules enter, do their work, and depart. You lie surrounded by the same invisible sea that wrapped the first plants, the first animals, the first human ancestors who ever looked up at the stars. Air is the one true inheritance we all share. It carries memory, not in words or carvings, but in motion, in circulation, in presence. To breathe is to remember, even if only in silence. And so tonight, as you breathe, imagine not only your own life, but the vast chain that came before. Imagine mammoths on frozen plains. Imagine ferns in swampy forests. Imagine trilobites crawling on the seafloor. Imagine the first living cell releasing oxygen into water. Each of them is with you now, folded into the air. Each of them, in their own way, is part of your breath.